wait for further instructions from authorities.
This is the emergency broadcast system. This is not a test.
Welcome to the Patriot News Network, hosting the American Voice with ZEEDA and Ben Pim. WTF, the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot Show with V. Wright and Jose Estevez. Citizens Initiative with the Countermand Amendment Report with Charles Kapowitz, Sandy Toth, and Kelly Gordon. Healthy on the Inside Out with Mary Lou Harris and Susan Price. Prophecy Matters with ZEEDA and Ben. Christian Freedom Show with Christian Freeman. And here is your host. Well, hello and welcome everyone to the American Voice tonight here at the Patriot Network News. Live from Jacksonville, and we intend to leave no stone unturned, and we will hold no issue sacred. I am ZEEDA with...
And I'm Ben.
Hello, Ben. Was the massive explosion in China August 12th the rod of God? This will be our main topic tonight on the first hour, and we do have a special guest with us, Thomas Williams. He will be joining us at the second hour, and we would like to welcome everyone to the show, and thank you for joining us. Well, how you been? How was your weekend?
It's better left unspoken.
It's one of those, huh? Well, rumors and theories have been surrounding this explosion a few weeks ago.
The less said, the better.
These rumors, there's several. Well, I hope they're not going to mess with the show tonight, but, you never know. But we're going to talk about the theories and the conspiracies and the rumors and about this Tianjin explosion a few weeks ago that hit in a China major port warehouse. It was a series of explosions that occurred within seconds of each other. And the official story of the death toll was said to be, at that time, 139, with over 799 injured. But in truth now, they're, getting all the numbers in. It's over 1,400 deaths with 70 people still missing. A lot of experts say the impact blast was the equivalent of 22 tons of TNT. And was seen by the satellite from space. I looked at those pictures. It's pretty evident. The cause of the explosion was not immediately known, but initial reports pointed to an industrial accident. Also, there was a lot of firefighters died. It kind of reminded me of the 911 situation. A lot of a lot of them died, and they said possibly because they themselves were using water to try to put out the blast. And there was an article in the South China Morning Post. They got an excellent article on that detailing the firefighters' infrastructure, which was the first responders, and they are at the lowest level, and they had, they were totally untutored of what they were going into. So it caused a lot of deaths of them, poor things.
For instance, magnesium reacts with water to explode and burst into flame.
They just had no idea what they were going into, just like our firefighters had no idea when they went into, the towers that they were going to collapse. And now all the media that's talking about in China, there's about the dead fish, in the water. A lot of the fish are floating up dead now, from this blast. Mm-hmm. And some witnesses there described the explosion as a nuclear blast. The Chinese government has clamped down on all information coming out of the area. The Guardian newspaper from London, there's a bunch of them, and 50 websites and hundreds of social media accounts have been shut down by the Chinese government. Is just a total censorship. And according to the vice mayor of Tianjin, there's 15 million people in this city, in this area where the warehouse is, where it exploded, stored 700 tons of sodium cyanide, which they were only authorized to store 24 tons. And they said that that was part of why they had the explosions afterwards to the initial two hard ones. And that sodium cyanide, they said, is water soluble, and it turns into hydrogen cyanide. And it washes into the local water supply, which will kill you. And I'm sure that's probably why the fish are dying like they are. So it's very, very bad. It's poisonous. This exposure, just a small dose of it it'll kill you quickly.
Well, they wanted it out of the air, first of all, and then they wanted it washed off the buildings. So they were happy that it rained, but of course all that pollution has to go somewhere, and of course it went into the river.
And that's why it got the fish and all the that ecosystem like it did. And the Chinese state media reported that the least initial blast was known from the hazardous material. Have you seen the videos of
the explosion 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Yes, it is incredible. It had a mushroom cloud. The first explosion wasn't as bad as like the second one. The second one was just like bright white light with the mushroom cloud. And I did post a bunch of pictures on it, and I've been watching a lot of videos on it and doing a lot of research. And it's truly terrible what had happened. And I feel really bad for the Chinese people there because they're being lied to by their government, and we know that very, very well. But one of the theories is, and this is from China, there's several media outlets that's getting well-known sources that's coming forward. And one of the theories is the United States dropped a Rod of God weapon on Tianjin. That is a kinetic energy weapon dropped from a satellite that travels at an enormously high rate, close to the speed of light. So it's very difficult to detect this weapon because it has such a small radar signature, and that there would be no advance warning, and really almost impossible to defend yourself against what they were, saying. And the Chinese know what we have better than what we do. And
also the angle of attack, the angle that it comes into, towards the target, it's almost impossible to shoot that down. The high rate of speed and the angle of attack, I would say it is impossible to shoot it down.
It's like a white light coming down, boom, and then it's over.
Yeah.
I mean, they would have to get it, know that it's going to be initiated and then hit it. But, oh my gosh, the more that I read about this, the scarier it is. In 2003, Rand Corporation that created this and the military complex, they said they were 15 years out back then. So that would put us at 2019 of completion. But, they always lie to us, our government does, and they always release stuff. They're way ahead, 50 years at least. I heard from some people 100 years, but I don't believe that. Yeah, I believe it exists.
There's a reason for that. There's a reason. It's illegal by international treaty to put weapons in space. So of course they're going to deny that they've done it.
Right. It's nuclear. The treaty is they can't have nuclear weapons in space, and this one is not. This one is like a telephone pole size, 18 foot long by 1 foot wide, of nothing but titanium, a solid, dense steel. It's like a projectile. They've got this thing down, don't they? They've
got ground-based units. It's not called kinetic kill vehicle. It's called, let me see what it's called, exo-atmospheric kill vehicle. That's made by Raytheon. They have ground-based units. They've proven the technology. All they need to do to, make it operable in space is to mount it to a satellite.
That's it.
How hard is that? You just put on an orbital platform with retrojets so you can steer it and aim it.
They sure do.
It's really not
that
hard. Big of a deal. Just strap the system onto a satellite.
And this is all kinetic energy, and they have this down perfected. It's pretty amazing, but, it would be nice if it would be used against something else besides Earth and the people of Earth. And another theory is the Rod of God was payback for China devaluating, and its currency, the yuan against the dollar, a week before in what some call a currency war, trade war, whatever. This is like a warning to China, not to sell off our debt at a discount. There's just a lot going on there. And then the major media has also picked up on rumors of a deadly asteroid. You've been hearing about that strike.
Yep.
There's another story that's been flowing around the internet and on the major news media. I mean, everywhere, London, Britain, everybody's covering this with no evidence whatsoever of an asteroid heading towards Earth. I would be more inclined to believe that it would be a wrath of God scenario, because they do call these emulate a asteroid. The damage does without leaving any nuclear fallout. So I would believe this instead of a meteor hitting. You know what I mean?
Right. There is a signature for an asteroid. It's gonna leave iridium. If it's a real asteroid from space, there's going to be iridium in the impact zone, and possibly in the air. Shortly after the impact. But of course, one could simply put a coating of iridium on one of these rods and just fake it.
You never know. When these governments that get in there and do this, they create these events. They plan for them. There's no telling what they would do to deceive the people. And now the Chinese people are going through what we went through with 911, and they are being so censored. They're in an uproar, and they should be, just like we were. It's sad, and these people are intelligent. They're hardworking people. It's all about the collapse of the economy. It's so out there. When you start studying these space stations that they have, and they name them, by these pagan gods on top of this, too. But these rods of God, they orbit in space. There's 2 rods that's at the space station called Zeus. That's the major satellite, and the name of
that makes sense.
And
that
doesn't
makes
it?
Perfect sense. Throws the lightning bolt. There you go.
The thunderbolts of Zeus. He throws them down at the mortals. And then the major satellite for these is called Odin, as in Thor, because the project is the project of Thor. We're back to the pagan god worship of Zeus, which is the throne of Satan.
Right. And of course, Thor had his hammer that he would throw, or he would pound the ground with it and cause earthquakes. So
and they call it the hammer too. Yeah, they have all these. I mean, this is what they're worshiping, these pagan gods. That's pretty scary. They don't worship God, they worship these pagan gods. This steel, one of these is 8 tons. Just one rod is 8 tons. Some journalists all the journalists, especially from the United States or, the foreign countries, they have to stay 6 miles away from the impact site. China will not let them any closer than that. So that's showing a major reflection of censorship, of usage. And they've cut out their internet. They have, I forgot its name, but they have like a Facebook interface like we have. It's Mobi or Moji or something like that. But they have closed a lot of people's accounts for posting pictures, talking about the explosion. They're being very, very censored here. So it's clear to me that China does not want the world to see what has happened.
Well, wouldn't you?
No.
Have you heard Barack Obama say a word about this?
Not one word.
By his silence speaks volumes.
That's the truth.
This terrible tragedy in China. Supposedly we're friends with China.
Mm-hmm.
We keep borrowing money. We always got our hand out, but this terrible tragedy in China, and of course, not even a word of condolence from the President of the United States.
What does that tell you? That's an admission of guilt. It absolutely is a mission of guilt. Wasn't it just last year that Michelle took the kids to China? It was not. It was not that long ago.
Well, she was hostage. They were hostages at the time.
I wish they would have.
Yeah, no, they were afraid Obama was going to launch World War III back then. So they said, "Okay, give us your wife and kids while we negotiate. So we know if you pull some fat stuff, we'll just kill them." Okay.
Right. Well, you never know what's going on because the American people, or really just the subjects, are always the last to know in any of these secret societies, wars that's going on right now. It is a new world order. It's a takeover, and this is, to solidify it, to put it in operation. I know Natural News and a lot of other news outlets are reporting on it, and they're continuing to report on it and see what that they can, expose. China and America, they say we are already at war, and as you can see, we're seeing explosion after explosion. We've had one at the just after the Tianjin explosion, we had one at the base, our base. It wasn't as significant, but it was, and then we're starting to see more and more occur. And you just said there was another one.
In Japan. That was in Japan.
Oh, in Japan.
Not quite Tokyo. Sort of near Tokyo. It was some kind of logistics base. But, once again, that's another case where they say it was just an accident, it was in a warehouse, and, so something exploded. Okay, what was in there that was explosive? No answer. There's no answers at all.
Yeah, I've seen that report, too.
Tianjin, okay, we know now that there was cyanide for whatever reason. Why do they need so much cyanide, by the way? But cyanide is not explosive. So what was the explosive material that supposedly had an accident?
Right.
So all these stories, none of it adds up.
It's inconsistent.
We're now living in a psychedelic universe where none of the stories actually make sense. But if you disagree with the story, you're possibly a traitor or even a terrorist.
Mm-hmm. Natural News had an insider from China that says the attack on Tianjin was from the U.S. because he believes that the United States is terrified of them announcing its gold-backed currency. They are declaring a fire sale on the U.S. debt holding that would collapse the dollar, and that they are disguising this attack as a chemical explosion. And just like you said, you just explained the chemicals involved, so that's not plausible. It all goes back to the dollar. And these secret space stations, specifically the Rod of God, I had other people confirm, yes, it's real, it's there, it's been there. They said it's been operational for quite a few years, but we're always the last to know. And they said if we knew all the technology that we had, you would crap your pants.
Right.
There's another one, a red beam that they said that would turn a football field into dust. These mad people have this technology. It's going to take God's intervention. Now I can understand a lot of scripture now about the stars falling from heaven. Stars are millions of miles away. You know what I mean? To just fall from heaven. But it makes more sense that something like this would, John, his interpretation had nothing in the modern era to compare it to as, stars from heaven. It would be this satellite technology, orbital.
When we see meteors entering the atmosphere, we call them falling stars. We know that they're not actually stars, but that's what we call them, even with all of our science. So that makes sense that you're talking about some kind of celestial object burning up in atmospheric reentry.
Well, when it enters in, it looks just like a falling star. I've been watching some videos on it, and it's what it looks like to me. And China called out over 200 nuclear biochemist experts, including a team from the International Atomic Energy Agency, I guess, to assess the damage or, what is there, along with other chemicals that's there.
And just to add on to the theme of ratcheting tensions between China and the West, or vice versa, China and Russia just did a joint military exercise.
The 28th.
It was a week-long exercise, and it was kind of a snap drill. Pretty much caught everyone by surprise, and they just announced it. Yeah, we're doing this, and we're starting tomorrow. So that signals China is on a war footing.
Yeah, they're getting ready.
And that Russia is right there with them.
And Russia will be here at the UN the 25th with the Pope on the 70th year meeting. So what does that tell you? That's just been thrown into the mix as well. A lot of things, these signs, you got to be aware of them, of what is going on around you with these new occurrences. And of course, like you said, Obama, you got crickets coming from the White House, crickets. And a press conference was organized by local officials there on the 14th, and all the journalists, they began to ask these questions, and they just cut the whole conference down because they're hiding something. I don't know, and I guess they wouldn't want the enemy to know. All of this censorship is very concerning.
And just reading some headlines right now. I see that the White House is considering sanctioning China over cyber espionage, as they call it.
Yeah.
So to basically to apply sanctions to China, which is an act of war, as they have done to Russia. So this is now, the White House is making pretty much a declaration that China is the enemy, and they're trying to hurt China.
Yeah.
Also, Bloomberg is attempting to blame the next recession. Will the next recession be made in China?
Right.
Well, Bloomberg knows damn well the next recession was made at Bloomberg, where they were giving false, fraudulent financial advice that they knew to be fraudulent because of their sources at the Federal Reserve, which is a counterfeiting racket. They're an organized crime syndicate and counterfeiters. So Bloomberg, the next recession will be made at Bloomberg. Just to remind you.
Here's what I think from all the data that I have been collecting. I'm doing my own assessment here. But you have to understand, just a few blocks from the site, Tianjin, the blast was just a few blocks away from their National Defense Science and Technology University, which houses the national supercomputer of Tianjin. And you have to, because they can take out what China can do. The biggest threat to China, to America, in my opinion, is that they can hack into these satellite systems and shut them down. And that, to me, is really what this is all about. And then they send them a rod their way, saying back off. Of course, all this other with the currency is believable, and I'm sure it is a part of it. And the fire sale on the debt, discounting and selling it, it has some things to do with it. But to me, the bigger picture here is that because these are highly intelligent people, and they are really the best at cyber activity, if you know what I mean. And this was just 2 blocks away, and it shut them down for a week. It shut this supercomputer down for a week. Now, they have 2 supercomputers. They have many supercomputers. Tianjin 1, Tianjin 2, and the 2 is the big one. But this shockwave sent the blast that was big enough to kick, they call it TNE-1, the supercomputer, offline for a week. So that's significant right there.
Well, okay. They took it offline.
No, it was blasted offline from the blast.
Well, I mean, the computer itself is safe. It's in a protected room.
They have backups.
Or, let me put it this way. The Chinese say the computer is safe. It's in a protected room. Mm-hmm. Most likely what happened was it was a circuit breaker, dealing with a power surge. So the circuit breaker tripped, and that's to protect the computer. Then they had to, of course, check all the wiring, the coolant pipes, and of course, air quality, because there was cyanide in the air. I mean, what an attack. Yeah. What an attack that was.
Yes. Oh, man.
It just defies reason to say, well, it's just a funky accident. Things happen.
It's not, though. But this Tianjin 1 actually does the stock market. This computer, this is the job of it. It does weather-like predictions, nuclear bomb design, code breaking, molecular modeling. Most recently, this supercomputer has been used in the financial market modeling, not just modeling. So, in fact, it also it carries out the transactions of Forex. So This is very in line with the thinking of the currency, the devaluation. Right. They will be announcing their currency is backed by gold.
Well, let me put it this way, ZEEDA. All the stock markets are run by supercomputers, all of them. Most of the trading is done by computer. And I don't mean somebody presses a button. The computers are autonomous. Wouldn't it make sense to have a computer that can analyze trades and look for malicious patterns and sort of look at it as a chess game and to sort of look ahead a little bit, see which way the markets are going. You don't want to be just purely reactive. You can be maneuvered that way. So let's say they took the computer offline for a week, and then bam, the Shanghai Boursa or stock exchange takes a hit, $2 trillion hit.
Right.
Okay. Maybe that computer was the system to analyze potentially malicious trades. Now they've just gone to old-fashioned way. They're just arresting people and interrogating them. They're trying to. Basically, the Chinese are saying it's sabotage that their markets took that hit.
They were saying that the U.S. was sabotaging them, and they were kind of, going into self-defense protection mode. And then no one knows what the supercomputer was working on that week before the explosion. But some speculate that it was operating satellites. And that very well could be the satellites up there with these weapons.
It just so happens that China is the world leader in anti-satellite technology.
Yeah.
They've already successfully shot down one of their own satellites from the ground. If the Chinese decide that this rod from God satellite is a serious national security threat, they probably have the means to shoot it out of
right.
space.
Yep. And we could take notes from this, because what China is doing to their people, if we have a incident here or an event, they will do exactly the same, because we have become a socialized country. And the media, their editors and reporters, the government stopped them from sharing any kind of information, especially on it's Weibo. That's it. I remember their name now. Weibo and WeChat are their biggest social media, like ours is Twitter and Facebook. They shut all of them down, and then they fired the ones that did post pictures or anything to do about a Tianjin incident. So, and then they have an internet police. They have an internet police, and I didn't know that warned all their social media users to not post any pictures and not say anything about it. A lot of hundreds and hundreds of people have lost their accounts. So that will happen here, especially with, you got Zuckerberg that is in line with it. He's a liberal, especially for the illegal aliens. He is an advocate for that, and he's part of this secret society that is destroying humanity. This is just mind-boggling, this major censorship.
If China was to shoot down this secret U.S. satellite that is in violation of the ABM treaty and some other treaties dealing with weaponization of space, if China was to shoot this down, it could be entirely deniable, because officially we don't have it and it doesn't exist. So, what can anyone do? If
they would expose that, wouldn't that be awesome? And of course, Obama would be the one to initiate it, because the Pentagon is not going to do anything without the authorization of the president. So there again, it all is kicked back to Obama. He thinks he is the ruler of the world. He's the Messiah. And what he says goes. It would be great if they would expose him. Oh, I hope and pray, that these weapons do exist. There are people that has come out just in the past few years that worked in the project, said, yes, it's real, it's up and running, has been. And, I thought was really investigating this stuff. You remember a few years back in Texas where that fertilizer farm was blown up? And, at that time, a lot of people from the videos, we all speculated it was a drone, because it came out, the guy and his son that were an eyewitness to it, he said it was just so fast that it came from the heavens, you know what I mean, just like a flash of light, and boom, and blew it up. That was probably the kinetic rod. I hate to even call it a rod
there's
from
several
God.
versions of it. There's also a rail gun, which is also ground based, and that's magnetically. It's a magnetic rail gun. And I know that they. Well, I don't know that. I've heard that they're very close to completion on that project.
Then I started going deeper, and this is just my theory. It's not, I don't have anything to back it up, but CERN produces so much antimatter in a day, to continue their operations. And who is to say that they don't use a speck of this antimatter along with these rods as weaponry? And there wouldn't be any kind of nuclear fallout as well. There again, we're putting our lives, a very small percent that is playing Russian roulette with humanity here.
Correct.
And I do believe
Correct.
that CERN has a lot to do with this, especially with all the pagan gods' names that's involved in it. Shiva at CERN, and then you have Zeus, the major space station there, and then Odin, and all this. We have to really look deeper than the surface here.
Right. And, and we also just had Cecil the Lion. That circus was running for several weeks. Obviously it's just a phony story to distract us from something else, but a lion in the wild does not have a name. A lion in a zoo has a name. A wild lion does not have a name. But, they decided to memorialize Cecil the Lion by projecting images of Shiva, or rather Kali, the destroyer, on the Empire State Building. And this was supposedly a message about preserving nature. Well, we understand how they want to preserve nature. They want to kill the people. They want to kill off all the humans and let nature repopulate the planet. They're going to do that by killing everybody. So we know what we're dealing with. We know who we're dealing with. We know what their plans are. The question is, how do we stop?
Yeah, we need outside sources. The only news media that showed up in China to report on this was BBC, AP, UPI, CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, and that was it. Fox did not even show up on a big story like that.
Yeah.
Find that amazing. I guess they probably got it from one of those sources there, but they didn't send any reporters there because they knew. They definitely have privy information.
Yeah. I mean, the thing in Japan, I just don't think it's comparable. If it's a tit for tat, it's like a cat swiping at a ball of yarn compared to, what looks like a nuclear bomb. And I'm not saying that somebody didn't plant a bomb at the place in Japan, at the military base, but it would have been a small bomb. It would have been a packet bomb, basically.
Yeah, I heard it could have been a micro nuke, too, because they have those.
The walls didn't even fall down, just burned up the roof.
Oh, well, no, the impact zone was 4 blocks, a 4-city block, and it did major damage. Oh, major. And a lot of those...
In Japan?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, China, not Japan. I'm getting those two confused. Yes, sorry. But here, the bottom line is this, y'all, and I've summed it up, it is this. At the very least, if it was a micro, nuclear is bad enough. Let's just take the rod of God completely out of it. What had happened is bad enough because Obama acted without the American people's knowledge, because it does involve us and it involves our future. Because if you think that China is not going to retaliate and that we're not going to suffer, you're kidding yourself. This is the beginning of World War III. Brought in a mighty, powerful country, a nation that has, oh my gosh, they have 1 billion soldiers in their army. They can send the 200 million over here, and that would be a drop in the bucket for them.
Yeah.
A drop in the bucket.
Yeah, and you know what? They probably wouldn't mind if all their soldiers get killed. They have overpopulation. They don't have enough water in China. They really do need to conquer lands just to feed their population. So, in terms of reducing their population.
And that could very well be, Ben, why that the Chinese government has censored the information going out as well. Because we've seen how the government does the people here. We've seen it live through 911. And we also seen the inconsistent stories. People watched it on the news. We had a lot of conflicting stories. A lot of them that came out in the very beginning, it's like they were programmed to say what they said. And like that one reporter about the fire, the flammable, which would not bring a tower down by itself. And we all know that it was blown up. After all these years, 13, 14 years, we know the truth. We just having a hard time proving it. But Russia says they have the proof. And I wish they would come forward with it.
Yeah. It's bad enough when the agency, the company, is stirring up the Muslims in China. That's kind of to be expected. They're doing the same thing everywhere else. Trying to flood China with dope, sure, that too. Financial attacks, okay. All of these things are operations other than war. All of these things are conflict management. It does fall within the purview of executive power, but an actual kinetic strike on a sovereign nation, that crosses a line.
It does.
If Obama would say, Congress, I have decided to take this action. I ordered this strike, and I've decided to take this action for the national security of the United States. We are in a state of war, and you now have 90 days to come up with a vote. Okay, that's also lawful. John Warner Defense Authorization Act. Okay, but to simply do covert wars and covert attacks all over the world and act as if he's really not accountable to anyone, that's treason, and he can be killed for that. He can be hanged by the neck until dead in the public square. Yes, that is the actual statute. Kill him for treason. But I'm sure I'm the one that's going to be killed for having said that.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. They have all these government agencies that have been taken over by their agenda and placed these laws, and they've done their reclassification of what a terrorist is, which is us. They're getting ready to really implement these against the American people. We have to rise up with arms, and don't let them take your gun away. I don't care. We cannot fight this beast with a bat or a knife. I mean, there's just no way. And fighting with arms is going to be tough enough because
it's going to be real hard.
They do have
our
this
little
technology.
rifles are just toys, and I appreciate what people are doing, especially the militia guys, the ones who are training hard. I really do appreciate it, but we are so outclassed. It's going to be basically impossible to do these things that some people are thinking of without actually suborning the military and causing them to learn to obey our orders.
Yes.
I'm not saying have friends in the military. I'm not saying there's good guys in the military. I'm saying they must be taught obedience. So that really is going to have to be the focus of initial revolutionary activity. Military officers will have to learn to be obedient to the lawfully constituted government of the people, not to this criminal syndicate operating in Washington. And those who remain rogue and piratical, murderous criminals.
See, Skype is messing with me because they put your call on hold. Ben, you there?
Yeah, I thought we got knocked off the air.
No, we didn't. Thomas called in and it put the call on hold, so Skype is messing with us. Sorry, y'all. Sorry for the interruption. Sorry, y'all.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ben. Sorry. Yeah, my whole point with this attack is that Obama acted without our knowledge. That's very telling, and that's very bad. We are in a war that's not being announced. On top of our economic collapse, the silence, the secret, everything done in secret is just pure evil. I mean, even the Bible talks about that. Anything that's done in secret is not of God. It's a pure evil. China will retaliate. I would, if I were you, I would prepare my family with extra food, extra water, even energy, solar, any kind of backup power that in case we have an interruption of power. But they will retaliate, most definitely will retaliate, and soon. And this could very well be the whole month of September, people are talking about all the negative. And we have the Shemitah, we have this asteroid that's supposed to come in. We have Yom Kippur, which is Day of Atonement. We have a lot of things happening. We have the Pope coming in. We have the UN meeting. We have a lot of things going on in September and October. So, yeah, please, heed the message. It's always better to be prepared, for what's coming ahead, so you don't have to suffer as much.
Right. So, yeah, that's a very good point. This is a very good wake-up call or reminder for everybody. Prep. Seriously prep. We could very well lose the electric grid, or at least in parts of the country. Not necessarily the whole country, but we could lose it in parts. We certainly lose internet and phone service on a regular basis. Somebody's running around cutting underground internet cables in parts of California. Mm-hmm. Nobody's been caught. There's been at least 5 incidents. Nobody's been caught. There's been also attacks on power plants, even with rifles, shooting out the coolant tanks. There was an amphibious assault on a nuclear power plant. A man rode up in a boat to the nuclear power plant. This wasn't 3 Mile Island. Where was it? I think it might have also been in Pennsylvania, but it wasn't 3 Mile Island. This was probably 2 years ago. It was an amphibious assault. He rode up in a boat, jumped out of the boat with a gun, and started shooting at the guard gate. And the guard gate fired back, so that attack was repelled. But yes, these attacks have been continuous. Now we're having attacks on the water supply. The EPA just polluted a major river in a very dry country, the Animas River.
The P in EPA stands for pollution. Because they become the biggest polluters of what? They're hypocrites. But Thomas, do we have you on now?
Yes.
Awesome. You know, for some reason, when you called it put Skype on hold.
Wow.
I hate that when that happens.
Yes, well, we had a lot of fun last Wednesday. We started saying too many things near the knuckle, and after the second hour of the third, they cut us off. And played classical music for the last hour. So,
well, welcome to the show, Thomas Williams. It's always great to have you here. We were talking about the rod of God and some theories going on, and
I've been listening. I got in late, so I've been listening. Yeah, we got told, and it's kind of difficult to put out on air because that's what got us into trouble last time. Who did it? Who ordered it, and what was used, and you're pretty much on the ball. It was nothing to do with Obama.
Okay, good.
He's kind of irrelevant in the scheme of things.
Yeah.
There's people way above him going on. Now, China got hit twice, and we had 2 confirms on that. And everyone focused on the Tianjin one, but there was another one within a day or so. And then, although I haven't had it confirmed, I have a feeling China was responsible for hitting the US base in Japan that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
That was a US base. Now, there's more activity just gone on in the last few hours, because they've hit another chemical plant in China, in Shandong, this evening. So it's ongoing. Will it escalate into World War III? No. We will not have World War III, and China will not retaliate on this soil.
I pray so, because they could annihilate us.
I said this alongside. If China or Russia wanted to wipe us out, they would have done it a long, long time ago. Now, certain factions in Russia and China are cabal, but they're being routed out slowly but surely. You know, there's a cleansing going on all around the world.
Well, we need to be cleansed. We need to be cleansed of Obama, and if they take that pestilence out, that would be great.
It's not being replicated here or the UK or in Rome, which is where the main issues are. You know, it'll be interesting to see what the Pope's going to say in what soon to be September.
Yeah.
Because apparently he's going to rock a few people. We'll see. I personally don't trust the man.
I don't either.
You know, once a Jesuit, always a Jesuit.
That's right. That's the problem.
Thomas, first of all, I'd like to welcome you to the show. For our listeners, Thomas Williams is producer and co-host of the Cosmic Voice radio show with Drake, and a friend of the show.
Yes.
I was actually curious, Thomas. I was going to ask you about the UK situation. Is it odd that Philip Hammond, the Foreign Secretary, had just left Tianjin hours before the explosion there?
No, not really, because what China is getting fed up waiting for the US people or militia or military to step forward and do the right thing. They've waited. Like I said, they could have ruined us a long, long time ago. And I'm not talking about war. I'm talking about financially.
I agree.
Now, what they decided to do was they dropped 800 billion in the bonds. Now that floods the market, which then causes massive shockwaves throughout all the markets, as you saw. To add to that, they devalued the yuan 3 times in 3 days. That has a massive effect on the dollar, and the banks are already straining to keep the dollar high. It's like a hamster wheel. I've explained this on Cosmic Voice. The banks have to step in and keep the dollar high to keep the illusion going, but that then weakens the banks, and then eventually they have to spin it back a bit and protect the banks. Well, what's protecting the banks is the QE, the unlimited QE. None of that's going to America. That all of it is going to bail in all the banks, and it's getting to a point where they're talking about they're going to have to print 1 trillion per month just to keep the banks going. And this is the impact that China has had. It's Sun Tzu, the art of war without firing weapons. It doesn't necessarily you have to fire tanks or drop bombs. You can fire financial weapons, and they've got the tools to do so. They've got the gold to do so. They've been collecting gold like it's been going out of fashion, along with Russia and India. And we have, from what I gather, very little of it left. What happens then is China can turn, and the rest of the world can turn around to the US and the UK and others that are involved. I believe France and Germany are about to step out, but we'll see. They've been threatening that for the last 3 or 4 months. So it's leaving us and the UK very, very isolated. Well, if you've got no gold and you're just printing money for the sake of it to keep your people going, well, not our people, their people, that means your currency has no value. It's just a piece of paper. We all know it's fiat currency anyway. But if it's supported by an asset of which we've got no gold, or it's all been stolen.
That's true.
we used to be able to say we have lots of oil. I mean, we used to be able to say we've got all this oil, but now oil is dipping below 40 a barrel. So what's that even worth?
That's setting the scene for the Rockefellers to introduce the new technology at a cost. They were involved with the 370 because the guy who had that energy machine died, and the Rockefellers took over it. Yeah. So there's so many things playing out all at the same time, and the whole gist of it is the control system at the top has collapsed. The top one is leaving. We said that on our show. The second group have been decimated from 21 to 3. The third group is of 13 has gone, and then the next group down is the what most people are familiar with as the Illuminati. Now, what has occurred with them is there's been a split of the factions between the Nazis, the Zionist group, and also the Jesuit group. And at the moment, the Nazis and the Zionists are going hell for leather at each other. They think they'll knock each other out, and they will be the new controller. Meanwhile, the Jesuits are sitting back and letting them carry on and picking them off. And the Jesuits, they have the same nefarious goals for us as what we know as the parents, which is the cybernetics and wiping us out and putting us in the full matrix, which is what we're not in currently.
Yep, you're exactly right on that. I was there's this paid site. I'm trying to think of their name, but they have evidence that Obama is Hitler's grandson, and they have the proof. I will get on that and pay on to get all that, extract that evidence if I can extract it. They said you can't extract it, but I'm going to copy it somehow. I'm going to get it somehow.
Well, most of our presidents, Ben no more on this, have got relations to the British royal family. Of course, they're also German, like the Bushes.
Right, exactly. Sheriff, isn't it? Sheriff.
Sheriff, yeah.
That's it.
And this is why you're seeing lots of stories in the media about the Queen of England doing Nazi signals. They changed the name in the First World War to Windsor, which is the house. That's just the name of the house. It's not the name of the family. It's Gotha Saxe Coburg.
Well, there was a German king that came and ruled England, remember?
Well, we've had a whole heap. It all started going very much pear-shaped when we had the House of Holland, which is people will know now as the International Netherlands Group, or ING. Same group. Same
group, yeah.
And we had the Dutch king, William of Orange. He routed out all the people of Ireland in the Battle of the Boyne. And again, you're getting into another realm about the church and these kings destroying our real history. And they've done it all over the world, destroying all the indigenous populations, because they've got the oral teachings.
And Obama's doing the same to us right now, destroying our history.
Yeah.
As he says, we're an Islamic nation. But, they didn't march on the halls of Montezuma or Tripoli. No. But he's going to put them in there somehow.
We're just dealing with a whole heap of royalty and families. People often talk about the Vikings, and that is a play on words. It really means the 6 kings, VI6 kings, and it's the 6 houses. Then became 9, and then became 13, and that's what you talk in the bloodline families. It's all this same group going on hundreds of years, and in some cases thousands. It's.
I'm curious. I'm curious. There's never any mention of Otto Habsburg. He's just a null entity. It's like he doesn't exist. Although he was a minister of the European Parliament, and he did sue Austria for his royal title, von Habsburg. But he's just completely dropped out of the news since then, and you're not going to find any mention of him. But I looked up his family, and I found that quite a few of the Habsburg family have converted to Islam. And being that these are the former Holy Roman emperors, I just wonder, are they playing a role in this New World Order?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're all playing off each other, but it's got more serious now because of basically the top 3 levels of the control structure is decimated. They think they can rule the world, and they can be king of the world, and it really is getting out of hand. The Zionist media, most of the media is owned by the Zionist group, are throwing the British royal family under the bus by putting all these stories out. It's part of the war behind the scenes that's going on. Then we've got.
But isn't the British royal family married into the Rothschilds?
No, the Rothschilds, from what I understand, are not part of the family line. They've tried to merge and co-join as family line.
They're just the House of Roth that's separate.
But they're still low level, right? They're with like.
Well, no,
they married into like Pallavicini.
Yeah, they've married into
these, like
basically
Orsini.
Every line to be the one, but they're not part of the what was known as the Blue Bloods or the bloodline families.
Yeah. Plus, their name is Rothschild. It's German. Armschel Rothschild was a Jew in the 1600s, and they, they married out. I mean, they may have maybe a third of, or maybe a quarter of Hebrew in them, but they hang on to that lineage so that you can hate Jews too. But that's the way it goes. And they,
it is.
It is.
You know, they don't like anybody.
They don't. They don't like anybody. But I know that Hitler, in his time, went to Turkey, and there was a priest or imam that showed him the art of war on how to kill Jews, and that's in history. You can pull all that information up. I pulled it up once before, and I can't pronounce this Arab his name, but you know, a lot of Muslims fought with Germany. You know, killed a lot of Jews. I mean, that's what they live for, after all. Yeah.
But it's just it's setting the scene. You know, a lot of the history of the World War II is completely. Let's just say it's been added to and enhanced.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah.
Neil Keenan has got the documents. Been given the documents where they China, Japan, England, USA, France, I think, all signed and agreed to have World War II in 1921. He's got.
Great.
I believe it.
That's great.
And I'm sure who's signing on here is it the 10 European unions with. They say it's 12, but it's actually 10 because America and Canada and Mexico are really one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it boils down to 10 European nations, the TPP, you know, because we are going to be, they're hell-bent on us being the North American Union, so you would have to say we're 10 nations instead of the 12.
The North American Union was done at least 4 years ago.
Okay.
Let me just think now.
Yeah,
was
it's
it
done.
2000?
It's done. That's why there's no
2010.
border.
2010.
And that's my point. It's a 10-nation union instead of 12, like they say. They want you to believe that, but America and Canada, Mexico, we are one.
When I came here, it was on what was called an E2 visa, and you had to leave the US every 2 years. The visa lasted 5, but you still had to leave every 2 years and come back in after a day or a week.
Wow.
We went on a cruise to Cancun. No, not Cancun. What's the other? Cozumel. And came back into Miami, and the immigration guy refused to stamp the visa. He said, "You haven't left American shores."
Yeah, yeah.
That was in 2010 or 2011.
I didn't know that existed.
So I turned around and
That's
said
right.
to him, turned around and said to him, so what you're telling me is NAFTA is in place. He said, if I was you, I'd be very quiet, or I'll take your passport off you.
Oh, that's good.
So, I mean, just to continue with the Zionist thing for 1 second, I've read that Benjamin Netanyahu is a 33rd degree Freemason, Shimon Peres, 33rd degree, Ehud Barak, 33rd degree, Yasser Arafat, 33rd degree, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, 33rd degree. So I've known that the Israel-Iran thing is
It's bogus.
It's stand up. It's not real.
No, and it's from the Vatican anyway. The Jesuits run that whole deal. And I'm trying to tell people that they have the separation of state there, really. You don't have freedom of religion in Israel or Jerusalem. They can't have a Sanhedrin. It is all ran by the Vatican. Even the the Ak Mosque there?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Pope goes there on
Al-Haq. Yeah.
That's it, Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Al-Aqsa.
Yeah, Al-Aqsa Mosque,
Yeah.
and he's
That's
there
called
all
Waqf.
the time. Yeah.
Waqf land. It's called Waqf. It means it belongs to the entire Islamic people. So nobody has the right to sign this property over.
Right. And have you seen on the Dome of the Rock on the outside the marble that has that evil face? You know, that faces each other in the marble. It's pretty. It's
like a weird insect or a demon or
it's
something.
It's pretty outstanding, and the marble has occurred over time, over 2,000 years, to have that image, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's like inside Vatican, the papal throne. If you Google that and go and look at the bronze statue inside the Vatican.
Oh, what's it called? I want to do that right now. What is it?
The papal throne.
Okay, the papal throne. Oh, is that where it's written that he's Jesus Christ on it?
it's pushing the boundaries, saying that's Jesus. Well, if it's Jesus, then Jesus was a reptilian. So you can,
Okay,
there's photographs.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Well, I know what you're talking about.
It looks like a vision of hell, and it's like the backdrop to the throne.
Yeah, there's dead, what looks like dead souls.
Really?
And then there's half man.
Oh, I see it now. Yeah,
half man, half reptilian. You can even see the reptilian tail on its left-hand side.
And it's got the cherubims.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's amazing. Now, I know about it from my research, but I haven't seen the throne itself.
Yeah, and it's not, there's photographs from 3 or 4 different angles, where sometimes you can look at one thing and it casts a different light. It's actually worse when you look at it side on. And this is, how we've been kidded. And I hope that the people wake up to the reality of this. It's just a massive corruption. And I hope they never get their manifesto.
Me too.
Which was basically, I read this in the 90s, that they were going to somehow remove the Palestinians, then remove the people of Israel, and then they're going to build an even bigger wall. And it's not to stop people getting out. It's to stop
they're
people
building a wall right now around Jerusalem.
It's unfolding, and then there'll be an incident of the Dome of the Rock, and then they'll build the third temple, and the Vatican will move into it. That is what the Jesuits are planning.
That's what the Jesuits plan. Yes, but God has another plan. But they are building the walls.
I don't think it will succeed.
No,
but this is what is playing out, and the more people become aware of it. The people of Israel.
We expose their plans.
They are, and they are crapping their pants.
Of course, the other thing they're throwing out now is, of course, to do with the genetics and that.
Yes, the DNA.
Most of the people of Israel actually came from the Ukraine. Well, at the moment, they're doing ethnic cleansing in Ukraine, so you would wonder whether you're putting 2 and 2 together, and where have all the people of Israel are going? Well, back to Ukraine.
Yeah.
And it's kind of frightening watching it unfold. Well, it may not happen.
The problem with that story, Thomas, is I looked into it more. I looked into it a little more deeply. I found the author of the original paper, and he was allegedly citing a paper from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Foreign Ministry in Israel. I could not find these names of the authors working for the Foreign Ministry or being residents in Israel or working for any of the universities. However, one of the alleged authors of this paper was a figure from Yiddish folklore from 200 years ago, and he was it was the name of a fool in a Yiddish folk tale. So it's a practical joke. It's not a.
I hope so. It's
the wicked one always perverts
the
anything godly.
The author of that piece in the Times of Israel, he's a professor at University of Massachusetts Amherst, and he's a strong supporter of the Palestinian cause.
Oh, right.
So, I mean, it's not a scientific paper by any means. Also, I looked at the scientific paper with the genetic. There was a follow-up genetic study, and what was determined was that the genetic markers that scientists was looking for he was looking for genetic markers that corresponded to the southern Caucasus Mountains, which is like Georgia, Armenia, Persia, and that's what he found. Now, that's more related to Middle Eastern peoples, but the Khazarians were North Caucasus peoples.
Yeah.
So it was a trash paper in the first place. It's trash science, and then add on to that some propaganda. And
unfortunately, most of our science is a pile of trash.
Well, it is. And one thing people don't realize, too, is this. On my mother's side, they came from the Holocaust, okay? And my father's side came from England in the, I think it was 1700s to America. But anyway, my point is this. The Orthodox Jew has not gone to Israel. I mean, there's some there, all right? But I'm talking about the masses. You have you have your mass population of your Hebrews are in America, Canada, and Russia. And they really want the destruction. You know what I mean? Just as much as the Palestinians, because they can't set up their Sanhedrin, their form of law, their Mosaic law, because it's forbidden. Because in 1968, through Shimon, he handed over the deed to Jerusalem to the Vatican. And the Vatican owns the deed to Jerusalem. So all this is playing out, and people think that, we'll never give up Jerusalem. Well, it's already been given up, and they're just playing this out like in a theater movie until all things are in place.
It's a big movie. It's a big circus. Mm-hmm. Also the Zionist movement was a socialist movement. That is the meaning of Zionism. It was a socialist and a nationalist. I wouldn't say national socialist, but it was a socialist movement. So these were people who believed in Karl Marx, which means they did not believe in anything mystical or supernatural. Now it's being, now this Zionist movement is being used to basically mix nationalism with religion. And that's how you get fascism.
We've discussed this once before. 200 years after the crucifixion of Jesus, the Father Church of that time, which, they became Catholicism, they created Catholicism. Magna was his name. He was a Jesuit Jew that we would say today, that signed on to that order. He rewrote the Kabbalah, their version of Kabbalah, which they use in Freemasonry from Solomon. Because they worship Solomon. I guess in his backsliding days of bringing in the pagan gods. Yes, and that's forbidden.
Forbidden magic. That's Enochian magic.
Exactly. And that's what they worship.
Witchcraft.
That is exactly what they worship in the pyramid of the capstone with the Jesuit order and so forth. It just goes on down. And that started 200 years after the crucifixion of Christ.
Yeah, it's... The part of the problem, there's too many labels on. The sooner people remove the labels,
ain't that the truth?
And recognize we are all human beings, and we're all pretty much the same. Yes, we might have different colours or different sexualities, but we're all the same underneath. And drop the labels. The labels are there to divide and conquer.
That's right. And another thing, it really boils down to good and evil.
Yeah.
That's really, you're either good or you're evil. You know what I'm saying? We're fighting evil right now.
Yeah, well, I always say to people, you have a choice. You can be the nicest person on the planet, and you also have the potential to be the most evil. It's how the individual chooses to go. Right. We all have good in us and we all have bad in us. And it's how the individual chooses to live this lifetime and this path. Yeah. I believe, we in previous lives, we've all been nasty. And this time we're all helping others, service to others, not service to self. And
that's so true.
We've got to end the labeling, because that's what they've applied to then divide and conquer.
And it works. It works. Yeah. Look at this Black Lives Matter. That is so dividing right there. I mean, all lives matter.
Well, we mentioned Ireland before. And it's still ongoing in small pockets, the religious fighting between the Protestants and the Catholic. Yeah. But then Protestantism...
It's never going to end. It doesn't end over here either.
No.
I mean, some of my people came from Ireland a long time ago, like 400, 500 years ago. That type of Irish, the Scots Irish, they're Protestant, okay? And the Protestants went up in the hills and the mountains, and the Catholic Scots were down in the lowlands. They were down in the plains, like in Virginia and the Carolinas. And we're still not friends.
The Pilgrims came to this country to get away from the racking and the burning at the stake because they were Protestants. You know what I'm saying? But it was there again, the Father Church, not the believers in Christ. Do you know what I'm saying? Well, look at Bloody Mary. I mean, she was very bad for that.
From what my understanding is, Protestantism is not really a religion. That came out of a movement against the corruption and fraud of the Catholic Church. So basically, it was renegade Catholics.
It could be. I mean, I haven't studied
this was
that.
in the 16th century. It was renegade Catholics who were tired of the Roman Catholic Church with corruption and fraud and wars and all, and it's still ongoing.
And I can see that.
Basically, they were protesting, and suddenly the British royal family turned it into another religion. And again, it's to divide the people. But we're all, in essence, if you want to call it as it is, I'm a Protestant, but in essence, I'm not. Right. In essence, I'm a Catholic. But it's putting the names to split. And it just carries on, Republican, Democrats, left, right, please.
Sometimes it's a positive benefit, Thomas. I mean, the Scots took their Protestantism and they wrote the Declaration of Arbroath and they formed a new nation. And that nation remained intact in Ireland and remained intact in North America. And I can't speak for Canada, but, it is a nation. The Scots-Irish is a nation. And they're Presbyterian. They're not Anglican. They're Presbyterian.
Yeah, and look at all the doctrines that you have in Christianity. This division. Either you're a follower of Christ or you're not.
We mentioned. I was listening to the first hour, and you mentioned the next recession. I'm of the belief we never came out of the last one.
Ain't that the truth?
That's their word, and again, we're out of it. How can you come out of a recession when you've got no growth? The minimal
they printed
amount
a lot of money.
The minimum amount of growth is dwarfed by the inflation thing, and we have a big problem. I had Jim Willey, as a financial analyst, on Saturday afternoon, and he went through a whole heap of things of what's going on in China, and I asked him about this reduction in the Baltic Dry Index, and it's indicative of our lack of funds we have here. Now, people remember the strike, and it's cast down as a union strike on the west coast last year, and there was hundreds of ships lined up. I don't think it was a union strike. I think we didn't have the money to give them to pay for the goods. And this is part of the problem we're having. We've got no liquidity in this country anymore because all the money's been siphoned out into European banks to keep them going. Because once they go, then the Federal Reserve goes within the week. They're doing their utmost to support the Deutsche Bank, because basically that's been bankrupt many times over. The HSBC is the next one. Yet again, their ATMs are closed at the weekend, and thousands of people have got no pay.
I just noticed today that Obama federalized the pensions.
Yeah, well, the pensions, I don't know how much it's in the red here. Well, Britain about 6-7 years ago was 80 billion in the red in the pensions, so it must be worse here. They're just stealing from all the funds because you mentioned the supercomputer, but China's also got the black books. Neil Keenan's got a copy of that black book, and that's all the codes and all the transactions globally. Yeah. So they know who's transferring money to whom and where, and some of it is being confiscated.
Well, I'm glad somebody's keeping a record of this.
That started off the nuclear blast on Japan seabed, because they confiscated 750 million out of the Royal Bank.
Well, did you 2011. Did you know that I just found out recently that the Pentagon has lost, since the 1960, I think it was 1969, up to today, 2015, $8.5 trillion.
They haven't lost it at all. Rumsfeld said they'd lost 2.3, on September the 10th.
Yeah.
I never heard about that.
Yeah, but it's accumulated.
It's not lost at all. It's going to the same group to basically pummel us into the ground. You know, their plans, long-term plans, which are now becoming short-term, is to turn the US into a third world country.
Yeah.
And we're heading that way. You know, we've got 1 in 6 on food stamps. You know, we've got half population on benefits. And so suddenly you're waiting on the government to fix it, but the governments are not interested in fixing it. You know, and they deliberately shut down jobs and put people on benefits because people on benefits are easier to control.
Yeah,
they started it in the UK a long time ago, and then it followed here.
Well,
because
the UK is having a time, aren't they?
Yeah, there's a lot of nice areas of the UK, but again, we have the same program that again got adopted here of the flooding the country with immigrants, for want of a better word, and unfortunately, the people turn on the immigrants, not the immigrants. The issue is the government policy. Now, the problem the US and the UK and Western nations, all Western nations have, is to keep Ponzi scheme going. You need to produce 2.3 children. Well, the Western world en masse are producing 1.1. That means their Ponzi scheme is going short. Yeah. So the only way they can keep it going is to flood it with peoples of countries where they have more children. And this is what they're doing with the Puerto Ricans and the Mexicans here. And they're doing it with the Eastern Europeans and the Africans in the UK and France and Germany. And it's all to keep the same Ponzi scheme going.
Yeah, because they levy our social security in the stock market.
Yeah, well, you know who's head of the Social Security, don't you?
Queen Elizabeth.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, Thomas, I have
and
a
the
question.
Taxes.
Thomas, I have a question.
Yeah.
You just spoke with Jim Willey recently?
Yeah.
All right. Jim Willey's been talking about something he calls the shite dollar.
Yeah.
In other words, it's worth nothing.
That's the German term for shite.
yes, that's right.
Basically,
that's
what
we've
got with the greenback.
The money, yeah.
Yeah, right. As Drake says, Drake calls it butt wipe.
Yeah.
But you know, so I have a question because I've heard Drake talking, I've heard Neil talking. You know, sounds like there is plan. Also, what's her name? The one Neil doesn't like from the World Bank.
Oh,
but
Hootie, Karen Hughes,
right?
Karen Hughes is cabal. She thinks.
Well, what do you expect? She's from the World Bank.
Yeah, she tells people in her blog that she's not part of the World Bank. Except I've got emails of hers sent to me where she sent to many of the leaders around the world with World Bank note paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and the World Bank should be renamed the World Bankrupt.
Yeah.
The World Bank is not going to save us; they're bankrupt too. Yeah. But the point is that I've heard talk about basically a new currency to replace the destroyed Federal Reserve note, which is going to happen at some point. Now, Jim Willey is extremely pessimistic about the new American currency. Drake seemed to be more positive about it. I don't know what to think.
Well, a lot depends. I think where Jim's coming from, Jim's not aware of the plan as such. And so he thinks, and he's right in one scenario, but not in another. And where he's coming from is they think they're pushing the dollar higher and higher and higher, and then people will say, and then it'll fall or the dollar will crash. He's of the belief it won't crash at all. It will vanish. That's
fade away, and then they'll bring in the Amero, right? The Amero dollar.
Not necessarily. I think that got stopped. But to then keep it going, and for the US to carry on trading as such, then they will issue some sort of a treasury dollar, but not treasury dollar, treasury note, yet another debt instrument, and that's where Jim's thinking that's like the shite note. It's the same stuff. What we're hoping to do is shut them down completely, and then start a new American currency that's not cabal oriented and not a debt instrument.
Yeah, because I think the cabal wants a digitalized money.
Well,
so
they
that
want
you can scan,
they want cashless society, and they want to microchip everyone. And
Right.
if you don't comply,
microchip.
if you don't
It won't be
comply,
cash. It'll just be a microchip.
yeah, if you don't comply, they'll just turn your chip off,
Yeah.
and then you've got nothing. You know,
Right.
That's what they're planning.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I mean, what I was concerned about was Jim Willie was saying that they're going to sell the new dollar as it's a 30% devaluation, but they're going to say it's just as good. It's just as good. Turn in your Federal Reserve notes, and here's your new money, and it's just as good. But it's actually 30% devaluation, and then 6 months later, another 30% devaluation, and then you end up literally holding butt wipe.
Well, that's what we've got anyway. That's the reality. You can't carry on printing money that is not supported by any assets. The derivative debt, from what I understand, in the US alone is 789 trillion. We can't pay that back. I think the global GDP is something like 8 trillion. How are you going to pay that back? You simply can't. And the only way we can solve this is to have a clean sweep right across the planet in every country, remove these rogue elements, install people who are transparent, who can do a job properly, with full transparency, and start again.
Well, not to change the subject, but what do you think about this so-called astoid coming in?
It's utter rubbish.
Good. I think it is. If they did anything, it would be more. I would be more inclined to believe the rod of God.
I'll tell you now. There's no asteroid coming in. None at all. We've heard this before, and we've counteracted. We cover these things on our show. We have connections, as mentioned on the show, with upstairs, and we get advance warning, and there's no asteroids coming in that's going to hit the planet.
And if there was, we could shoot it out.
We have the technology, and there's beings on the outside that will stop it long before it gets anywhere near the solar system.
So this is a distraction for those people.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah. It's this next month is going to rock everyone's world.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get, it's already ramping up, asteroids this date and this on this date, and all kinds of ritual dates, and Pope's going to say this and the Pope's going to say that.
Global warming.
It's going to get very, very testy for a lot of people. But there's no asteroid coming in. There's no Planet X coming in. What's a rubbish?
That's what I think too.
And there's no blue avians helping us either.
Yeah.
That's right.
Those are programmed people, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. These people these are unfortunate people that have been abused by the system.
Right.
That's yes, I feel for the guy, because some say he's lying deliberately. I tend to believe he's not. This type of programming that these people are subjected to.
Yeah, they think it's real.
Is horrific. We're hoping to have a show next week and cover this. Not so much the blue avians, more to do with the mind control and the MK Ultra.
Yes.
Because part of the Ben will know this, but before MK Ultra, there was a program called Project Bluebird. That's where your blue avian comes from.
But it's all Nazism. It's all a part of
it. We played our role in it as Americans.
Well,
we certainly got our hands dirty.
Well, it is now. Yes, I know that, but I'm talking about the originators.
Yeah, but they were kind of given that type of technology, if you like, by the Aldebrans. That's where the Nazis suddenly gained all kinds of scientific advancement, and then suddenly we had Project Paperclip. We deliberately staged the end of the war and settled out between all the countries. And next minute, we've got all the German scientists setting up
in America.
NASA.
Yeah.
NASA.
Yeah, that's right.
NASA is a Nazi organization, whether people like that or not. And it's also not part of the US.
Yeah,
it's not affiliated to the US.
Yeah, and it's heavily funded by Muslim countries.
And NSA is also Nazi.
Yeah. And Department of Homeland Security and CIA. It's the same people.
Yeah.
That's why Bush Senior ran it for so long, and all his people have been put in place since.
Well, he still gets a trilateral commission report every day.
I don't believe. I'm not too sure he's still alive, but that's.
I know. I heard he broke his neck.
Oh yeah, he poor old Bush. He had a fall and he broke his neck, but. Apparently, a 98-year-old man can survive a broken neck with a freaking neck brace.
Yeah, I'm sure they cloned him. And people that don't believe in clones, they're really being delusional here. I mean, we're eating cloned meat already, have been for years.
Yeah, if when they come out, remember the big furore in England, Dolly the sheep, and you think, well, if they're telling the public this much, then it's so much. That's where you got to look at it. You were talking about the satellites and weaponry satellite. They told you about this in Terminator, the Skynet.
Oh, isn't that the truth?
So what they're putting in films is probably about 25% of what they've already got.
Yeah.
And
programming.
People have to look at the movies, because they have to tell you what they're doing. That's part of the magic, the black magic in inverted commas, is they have to tell you what they're doing, and it's up to you to decode what they're doing.
Yes, exactly. They tell a vision. Tell a vision.
Yeah.
Oh, and can I just elaborate? I know Drake touched on this briefly on his show, but I just want to add my little 2 cents here.
Yeah.
These Terminator robots they're trying to scare us with. Okay, I am a technologist. I'm into every type of technology. The more advanced, the better. This is what I'm into. Is what I've been studying since I was a child, including space stuff and robotics and everything else. Look, these robots that they're showing us are all of them tethered with a giant cable. No, they're not capable of processing power to do the things that they're supposed to do. The computer is external, and they have a cable mounted to them. So yes, they can do some locomotion in a controlled environment. It's nowhere near the phase of like a Terminator robot. I know they're trying to get there, but
that's why they're
having trouble getting there.
They are, and that's why they're heavily into transhumanist to try to perfect it, because it's self-powered. Yeah,
well, that was the role of the what we discussed recently about the parents. That's their agenda, the cybernetics, to keep their life going again. And they also taught what's caused the lower level factions to go a bit squiddly is they also put it out on the blog with the guy I deal with that they're going to wipe out the bloodlines. So they're not interested in the lower control structure either. There's only 3 of them left, and they're all women, funny enough, all females.
Yeah, they're the breeders.
And hopefully we'll convince them to step down like the other 18. We'll see. But there's a lot of, I know, like tonight, a lot of the listeners will be worried, but rest assured there's lots of things going on behind the scenes that have not made public, not made the radio, that is very much on the positive side.
Yeah, I've been hearing that too from some of my sources that, not to worry.
I'm not going to, I can't say everything's going to be hunky-dory.
No.
I think we will have difficult times, particularly in the US, because a lot depends largely on the public. How are they going to react if some major event takes place, like the banks shut down?
They're going to be mad as hell. I'll tell you how they're going to react.
You know,
At that point, if you take that away from them, they have nothing to live for. And see, all this bombardment and all this fear mongering, it's going to bite them in the butt in the long run, because people are going to going out there. Now, the problem I see is with the people, like, don't feed the bears. You don't feed the bears for a reason, because they lose their survivalist instincts. And the people that have been fed on this system are our biggest danger.
Yeah,
right.
You've handed your power over to people who have not got your interest, you know. And the likes of people who listen to this show and listen to Cosmic Voice, they've had a step up into this realm. That's you know, I know we're all classed as conspiracy nuts and all that rubbish, but no one likes being fooled.
No.
And suddenly these people who we kind of refer to as the sheeple are going to wake up with a huge shock, because everything they thought they knew is wrong.
Yeah.
And it's going to have a major
psychological effect.
9/11 was a major trauma for the US people.
Yes.
That when the full truth comes out, it's going to tip people.
I think that they're going to react as the people of Nero, and they tore Nero apart. And I believe with all my heart that's how the people, after they wake up, that's going to be their reaction.
But
my concern is always the people. The cosmic justice or righting of wrongs. That to me comes secondary to keeping people alive. And what concerns me the most, what makes me very nervous, the elderly, the disabled, infirm people. They're going to have a very difficult time. I know some of these rugged individualists are actually kind of looking forward to the collapse. They're just going to be doing what they like to do anyway, hunting and fishing. Well, okay, but some of these folks need machines to stay alive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay? This is going to be a heartbreak for all of us, because we all have someone in our family who is not well, and they're not going to make it. Okay, this is going to stab us in the heart. People are going to die because medicine is not available, because hospitals are closed, because there's no power, because they can't get medical attention, and they certainly can't go out hunting and fishing. Where are they going to get their sustenance from? So I don't really have a solution for this. All I can say is, look out for your neighbors, look out for your family, try to help people.
Yeah.
Yes. One of the things I've spoken about on Cosmic Voice, we must learn to end the competition between the people. That's what's killing us. We all strive to have a better house or a better car or better clothes than your friends or neighbour or family. All you're doing is playing the death cycle game.
Yeah.
And the sooner we all rise up together and stand up on our own 2 feet is the day that this ends.
Yeah.
I don't think, in my own personal opinion, it will be as difficult to knock them down as people think. These people are cowards. That's why they spend billions a year surveilling us with NSA and tapping our phones and spying through TVs and all kinds of other chips and credit cards. And these people are cowards.
Yeah. And they do everything in the secret, in the dark, because they are cowards.
And suddenly, like cockroaches, the light is being shine upon them, and they're scurrying.
Yeah, I know it. Before they get
they're
squished.
scurrying. Don't you worry about that. They're scurrying, and they're worried that people are coming for them. And it's. I know people say, "Oh, it's not happening in America," and to a degree, I agree with that. But there's a whole big world out there. I've posted 6 articles in the last 2 days where there's tens of thousands of people protesting in 6 different countries. That's just the last few days.
And it's not on the news.
No, you don't see it on the news because they won't tell you that the people of Israel are protesting in Jerusalem most weekends because they don't want to give you ideas.
No, and they also want to preserve this negative image of Israel
Yeah.
You're not going to see that there's people in Israel and Tel Aviv protesting
No.
deportation of migrants, protesting the unfair treatment of people of Ethiopian background. It's not an anti-Zionist agenda. It's an anti-Jew agenda. It's coming directly from the Vatican. We know them well. We've known them for thousands of years.
Yeah.
These are not the Romans. We were friends with the Romans for thousands and thousands of years. The Romans helped us to fight off the Greek, okay? The Vatican is the temple of Saturn, and these are our enemy.
The synagogue of Satan.
Yeah, well, that's you mentioned sin, and that plays into Saturn as well, because that's what they're trying to create as part of this control system. Currently, we're not in a full matrix; we're only in small pockets, and what they want is the full matrix, and it runs through Saturn as the second sun.
Yeah.
You're seeing some activation of Saturn, and it runs via the moon as well. I can't remember how many sides, but the strange, I think it was hexagonal, but it may not have been that many sides. It just doesn't create a nice, perfect shape. It's engineered, but they won't prevail with it. Sin will not prevail. Despite what they're telling you that it's all fired up, it's not firing up at all. We have people who are involved with that, and it will never fire up or work like they think it will.
Yeah, but it takes an enormous amount of energy to fire it up.
Oh, they can do that, but
Yeah.
there's too many, let's just say, interfering with it.
But they are producing, what they are doing that concerns me, and I talked about it earlier, is they are producing this antimatter.
They think they are, they're not.
Oh, really?
It's been
Yeah, no, I hear you, Thomas. We don't want to get too specific, though, right?
Okay, well, you don't have to be. So it's really not antimatter then, right? Is that what you're saying?
Somebody is throwing a spanner in the gears, right?
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
The big plan for CERN was December the 21st, 2012, and 5 days before, interference took place and shut it down.
Well, I do know a week from tomorrow is the 7th. We have a solar eclipse. And, of course, we have the supermoon, blood moon, the 23rd. So, yeah, we're going to see a lot of bizarre things happening in September. Shemitah, everything, going into the Jubilee year. I'm just wondering if we do have a collapse, are they going to... The way a real Shemitah is supposed to work, that all debt's forgiven. And that's for the little man. So, are we going to be forgiven?
Allegedly, the Pope is supposed to announce some debt jubilee in December. But do we really want the jubilee? Because it'll come with hooks at the end. A lot of people will be up in arms and think, oh, fantastic, I'm out of debt. Good luck with spending what
read the fine print. Read the fine print.
Because basically we're all on a fishing line with the Jesuits, and there's a big hook at the end.
Yeah, don't sign anything. That's one thing
I would say if the Shemitah is real, we should see it take place first in Israel. The people in Israel are the working poor, basically. Yes, there's a few wealthy people. The people that I met over there, they're working very hard. They're trying to get by. Cost of living is very high. Food is expensive. Rent and mortgages are very high. They could start with forgiving the mortgages of the Israeli people who have fought in wars. They've died. They've sacrificed their sons and daughters for the state. Forgive those mortgages first, and then we can start to believe that it might be real.
Well, it is real. Is real.
God
is real.
We have the discussion with Neil Keenan over this, and he says, the East believe that America has lived a middle class lifestyle off the back of the East with the gold that the Federal Reserve borrowed in inverted commas in 1934. I said, well, it didn't improve that much. I said, it only improved when in the advent of the credit card.
Yeah.
Most middle-class lifestyles are at the behest of the credit card, not a real middle class. Basically, you've got a working class who are getting into an ever-increasing spiral of debt, myself included, acting out a middle-class lifestyle, but paying a price eventually. Incredible. Because they'll shut it down, and then you can't pay it back, and then they start taking your assets off you.
The entire economy is a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
You know, and like, you know, let's say you're getting by, let's say as a tradesman, and of course you have credit, you have debt, you need credit, you know, to buy supplies and do a job. Well, then you hope you can write it off as a business expense and get a tax refund. Well, how is that not a Ponzi scheme? I mean, it just everything in this economy is a Ponzi scheme. Whatever happened to independent wealth, just owning your own stuff, just your own car, your own house? Let's just start with the basics.
Yeah, well, I've said to Neil, you know, with the wealth in those bunkers, you know, we could have. Why do we have to pay for mortgages? You know, who decided we had to pay to live on our own planet? You know, it doesn't belong to them. It belongs to everybody. It's the same as all the resources. Just because we've got oil in North Dakota doesn't mean it belongs to the US. It belongs to everybody. You compensate the people who mined it, or the country who mined it. But those resources belong to everybody, not a group of oligarchs and bloodlines.
You're writing something. You know, to deal with the way forward in the future. Can I recommend a little bit of study material?
Yeah.
Okay, the national debt of Iraq was negotiated down. They paid. It was negotiated down. 9/10 was forgiven, and I happen to know the principal who was involved in that.
Okay.
So that's a case study to look at. So Libya under Gaddafi, there was a lot of positive movements, and he wrote a book. He wrote a book called The Green Book. There may be some useful information in there.
Yeah. Well, if that there's like a meme of Gaddafi, and you got married, and the married couple got given $50,000, and if you had a child, you got given $5,000 and free school, and you know everything was free. It's not the impression we have of him here or in the UK for that matter. And again, he was going against the dollar and the Federal Reserve, and that's the problem we have here.
It's all about debt. They need that debt.
Yeah.
They will not let it go.
You know, this country was doomed the minute the so-called Titanic. I actually think it was called the Olympic that went down, not the Titanic, and they imposed the Federal Reserve on us. You know.
Yeah, he was the one on the Titanic.
Well, most of the European people that died were European bankers who were going to vote against it, and you know. I'm not being funny, but you do not get icebergs opposite New York in the middle of April. You know, and there's a whole history of accidents with planes and boats.
All they have to do is say accident. People believe it. Just like this.
Oh, yeah. You know, you got the Federal Reserve and the IRS. The foreign imposters on our soil, they had to be removed. You
Absolutely.
know, we can never get out of debt. When the US, the country, the US, I know it's a corporation now, has to borrow the money off the Federal Reserve at 6%. How can you pay that back? Are going to the bloody Queen of England and European bankers and the Vatican. That belongs to the US and the Republic, not to them.
You know, and we've got this fantastically wealthy organization called the Roman Catholic Church. They produce nothing. They manufacture nothing. They don't grow a single tomato. They literally produce nothing. And yet they're so fantastically wealthy. You know, it's just amazing that people will not open their eyes to this.
No.
I know.
You know, if he's got any, he keeps talking nice things. Why hasn't he sold all the wealth and give it to the poor?
Right. Show us an example.
You don't have to come to the US and announce things. You could just do it. But they're not interested in that. So I advise people to be very careful with what he's saying.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to keep a watch.
You know, and while we're on the wars of religion, you know, Ukraine is a Catholic country. The Russian speakers are Orthodox. Okay, so yes, it is a crusade.
Yeah.
What was the other one I was thinking? It's literally a Catholic jihad against the so-called heretics. Syria also, the Christians there are not considered Christians by the Roman Church. They're falling under the Eastern Church. The ones that are considered Catholics, guess what? They're resettled. Ha ha ha.
And they took all the artifacts and then tore down all the monuments that's been there for thousands of years, which is horrible.
Palmyra.
And they would just love to make this a Jewish conspiracy. The simple fact is, there's a man named Benjamin Netanyahu who is the supreme leader in Israel. He's a total disaster. Benjamin Netanyahu is the cause of problems. Israel itself is not inherently evil, but the leadership there is terrible, and the Israeli people have failed to vote him out of office, and they do bear responsibility for that.
Well,
they
run
have
the same,
voted him out.
Just like here, we are having the same problem, and it is the same people behind it.
Yeah,
we have to go after these secret shadow governments.
Yeah, Bosun's a scam anyway.
Yeah.
So the only way you're going to do it is by forcibly removing them, and it's up to the people in positions in Israel to do that.
Ariel Sharon was not a 33rd degree Freemason, and he was assassinated by his own security. They injected him with something, and it liquefied his brain.
He was in a coma for a long time. 10 years? 8 years?
They injected him with, it may possibly an amoeba, I don't know exactly what. Yes, and that was an assassination, and there's no way to prove it. There's been rumors flying around that Bibi Netanyahu was behind the assassination of Rabin and also of Sharon. Now, Ariel Sharon was the guy who said, okay, I'm going to do the unthinkable. I'm going to send in troops to pull Jews out of their homes because we need to quit Gaza. We need out. And he was killed for that.
Yep.
So those who just want to hate Israel are really not taking into account people have sacrificed their lives trying to get peace, trying to do the right thing, trying to get peace and end this war. And guess what? They get murdered.
Yeah. Yeah, people have to learn to distinguish. We've had issues of that on our page. The difference between Jew and Zionist. Yes, it may be come under the same banner, the same country name, but they're very different people.
Yeah, I know. I go through it all the time, Thomas.
To learn to distinguish. It's like people anywhere around the world saying all Americans are all bad because we're goose-stepping through all kinds of countries. Again, it's people operating on behalf of us.
It's a political party. Zionist is a political party that runs for elections.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with their Judaism. Yeah.
Many Israelis do not consider themselves to be Zionists, and they don't vote for the Zionist party.
And they take that oath.
But outsiders don't know about that.
No, they don't. But it's the name that gets them. And, the evil has always perverted everything godly, and they've taken it. It's the confusion of it. Wherever evil is the confusion. And you have to study and to know the difference. But, yeah, it works. I go through it all the time. I get some people on the side, will message me and just cuss me out, and they call me Zionist and the whole deal, and I'm not.
But you know what though, and I'm probably not going to win any friends for this, but I believe that the conflict, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, can be put to bed relatively easily. It takes two men. It's going to take two men. It's going to take Dennis Ross and Bill Clinton. If they're still in good enough health and feeling motivated enough to do it, I believe it can be done.
What they can do? What Clinton can do? What
he can talk to people. He's the best schmoozer that ever lived. Last time Bill Clinton put his fingers in the peace process.
Yeah, but he won't. He's a very corrupt man.
It's like everything came to a halt.
Yeah,
nobody would mess with him. Like
he will not.
For offending Bill.
But he's a globalist, and he will not do it because he's got to get paid $250,000 just to step his foot on the podium to speak. He's a very corrupt man.
He would have done it prior to 1999, 2000,
Yeah.
until him and Hitler bankrupt to the
Hillary,
tune
I
of
love it.
7 million and they were paid out by the Bush group.
Yeah, they're so corrupt. Oh my God.
And so basically they're now part of the Nazi group. It would have been a good idea a long time ago, but not no more. They're part of the Nazi group.
They're so far in it, they have no way to go but to continue it.
No.
They just need that money. Gee whiz. How do the Clintons end up going bankrupt? Where do they spend all their money on?
Well, Hillary lost billions of dollars too when she was in the
Well,
Secretary of State.
from what I gather, they had a lot of their funds. They had a fair amount of money, as did Obama. Michelle got, or Michael, as I would call her, got her or his money out of the Vatican Bank before they shut it down. And Clinton had X number of billion in there. Obama had 2, from what I gather, as I was shown the accounts. Tony Blair was another one, and they had it confiscated. She took hers out and put it in Santander. That's when she went to Spain on her own. Well, Santander are part of the Spanish royal family, who are part of the British royal family.
Such corruption.
I thought that bank was going to collapse, and then it didn't. Now I understand why.
Well,
Hillary Clinton saved Banco Santander.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, we've had a really good show tonight. We've run out of time. And Thomas, thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome.
I love it. I love it. You brought a lot to the table and enjoyed it. And thank you to all our listeners, and God bless you. And we will see you Monday. No, it is Monday. We'll see you Wednesday night, and tomorrow is Charles Kapowitz with the Counterman Amendment Report. And also catch V at 6 to 8 with the What the F show. And thank you so much. Go ahead, Ben.
Yes, thank you, Thomas. I wanted to pick your brain some more, but I guess we'll just have to have you back on.
Yes, anytime.
And don't forget, Cosmic Voice is also on Wednesday night. I listen to the replay after the show because we're time slot. I never miss a show, so tune in.
Yeah, I do listen after too. Ben always sends me the link.
My message to people, particularly this coming month: never let anyone put you in any fear.
Good.
Stand your ground. Be prepared, but stand your ground, and don't let anyone tell you asteroids and all this is coming, because it ain't.
All right, great. Well,
And
good night, everyone.
Thanks for coming on.
No, thank you, and good night, y'all.
Night all.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Hashem natan lanu et derech Yeshua b'Mashiach Yeshua. Amen.